Hi, and welcome back. Another sponsored Cable Guys video today, because ShaperBox has a new module available, the PitchShaper. Here's a synth chord pluck with delay repeats. Let's set the modulation to 4 bars, pick the line tool with snap enabled, and plane those chords around to create a pattern. Notice that as I'm adding the delay before the PitchShaper, the delay repeats shift in sync, and carry on shifting when the dry signal stops. Okay, here's a drum loop, shifted with one of the preset modulation patterns. We have some different algorithms available, however. I'm going to pick Vintage for this one, which evokes memories of the naive pitch shifting and time stretching in early digital samplers. It sounds kind of ring modulated with smaller grain sizes, or flammy and chorusy with larger sizes. Lovely. Sometimes you want crisper, more high-fidelity pitch shifting, so this snare channel is going to get the drum mode instead. These are proprietary Cable Guys algorithms, by the way, not just licensed from the usual suspects. And this one does a great job of keeping drum transients crispy and tight, even if I pitch it up 2 octaves or rapidly sweep the pitch through a drum hit. We also have the option to unlink formants and treat those separately. Actually, I like them linked in this case, so I'm going to demonstrate the same option in the vocal algorithm instead. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. I can feel the relief radiating from you all. I grabbed a free sample off the internet instead.
Down, 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 down.
Let's pitch that up 3 semitones.
Down, 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 down.
And notice the slight munchkinization of the sound as her voice box also gets smaller. We can fix that by unlinking formants, which are the resonances of the voice that don't change in pitch for each note, and shifting those separately.
Down, 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 down.
Or not at all.
Down, 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 down.
Now the voice is singing a minor third higher, but doesn't sound any smaller or squeakier. I'm going to bump the formants up a little bit though, to make this sound like a different voice, and blend better with the original when I mix them together with the dry-wet mix control at the top.
Down, 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 down.
At this point, my classical training kicks in and tells me the third note should be shifted by a major third instead to keep it in the diatonic minor key. Let's grab the line tool again and change that.
Down, 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 down.
But like the 13-year-old me, I then rebel against that boring buttoned-up bollocks and dial in something more interesting.
Down, 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 down.
Yeah, that's more like it. I haven't finished yet, though. Like all the other shapers, PitchShaper can be multiband if you want. I'll drag down the upper crossover to somewhere in the mid-range and select the high band, for which I've already dialed in some magic numbers. Here we have 6, 7, 6, 9, 4, 2, and 0.
Down, 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 down.
Awesome. Those vocal harmonies inspired some slightly jazzy guitar chords. I'm going to preserve the purity of the mid-range here by not doing anything to it. Instead, I'm going to wind up the low crossover and maybe make it steeper. Select the low band and hold the keyboard modifier to fine-tune and drop the pitch by just a handful of cents. And then blend that with the dry signal. Let's do the same for the high band, but this time I'll nudge the pitch up a few cents instead. And as these dry-wet mix sliders are per band, we need to set that again for the high band. Now we have a lovely subtle detuning effect, like a kind of gentle chorus that doesn't touch the mid-range. As I was feeling a bit jazzy, I tried adding a descending chromatic guitar line. I'm not sure about it though. I wonder if I can find a preset to enhance it subtly. Let's select the glitch sound design category and filter only presets that use the PitchShaper. Tiny ARP sounds promising. Let's try that. Much better. Right, Now, I want a bass part. I think I've mentioned before that I suck at playing bass guitar. Part of the problem there is an inability to think like a bass player, of course, but I'll ignore that and play something on a guitar. This is an SG special with P90 pickups running into a Bassman amp sim for a bit of a vintage vibe. Now let's dump all over that vibe by pitching it down an octave. And I wonder what would happen if I picked the wrong mode, like a vocal, and unlinked the formants, and modulated the formants with a curvy pattern, maybe running over 3 bars. The answer is, it sounds great, except we're losing some of the way to the low end at times. So let's wind up the low crossover, set it to 24 dB this time, and give the low frequencies a simpler octave down shift without the formant modulation. That's better, right? And if I switch back to the mid-range band, notice this density parameter. If I turn it down, the sound gets kind of thinner and throatier. Turning it up again adds more filler content, which creates that kind of oscillator sync flavour when the formants sweep up high. As a quick aside, we can do exactly the same thing with the drums algorithm as well, with a slightly different flavour of result. This part seems equally not drums or vocals, so I'm just going to go with the one I like better. Final touch. You've heard of sidechaining the bass from the kick drum, right? Of course, we could do that using a volume shaper to duck the level of the bass whenever the kick hits. But I've got something more interesting in mind. Let's grab the line tool and briefly set the pitch back to 0 at the start of the pattern. And I'll switch to the low band and do the same. Of course, you can copy and paste patterns between bands if you have something more complex dialed in. The linking button is turned on below, so when I switch this band to audio triggering and enable the sidechain input, to which I've already routed the kick, that will affect both bands. And now the bass gets out of the way of the kick by playing up an octave whenever it hits. ShaperBox was already a great way to turn my boring pub blues solos into something fresher and more interesting, but the new PitchShaper adds even more options. Let's start simple with just an octave up shift, so I can rip a solo an octave higher than you'd normally expect from a Les Paul. Well, that was okay, I guess. But let's see if there's a preset that does better. I'll try this one, BPF Step Pitcher. And it highlights the fact that, as fun as the PitchShaper is, it gets exponentially more powerful when combined with the other shapers in a fully loaded ShaperBox. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.